These are the solutions for the study guide for Chapter 2, Section 7 for Math 8. Let's take a look at our first problem here. And it asks us the vertices of the figures are given. So these are the vertices. Draw the figure and its image after the dilations. So let's go ahead and draw the figure first, because that's what it's asking for. So over 2 spaces to the left, down 2. And we'll put a G down there. And then we're going to go over 2 to the left and then up 6 spaces. And we'll put H. And then over 2 to the right up 6 spaces and we'll put J. So there is the figure to start with. And so now we're going to end up dilating this figure with a scale factor of 1/2. And so when we do that, basically we're taking half of each of these numbers. So I'm dividing both those numbers by 2, dividing those numbers by 2, dividing by 2, and that's what taking a half is. So let's go ahead and write down what those coordinates are. So G prime is going to end up becoming -1, -1. I got that by dividing -2 by 2 and -2 by 2. H prime, that one ends up becoming -1, 3. So again, I'm dividing -2 by 2 and 6 by 2. J prime, that one becomes 1, 3. So I'm dividing both the 2 and the 6 by 2, and that's what I get. So now they're asking me to go ahead and draw that as well. So I go over 1 space, down 1 space, that is G prime. And then over 1 space to the left, but up 3 gives me H prime. And J is over 1 and then up 3. That is J prime. So there we have it. So that's what the first problem will end up looking like on the test, and again they ask us to identify the type of dilation, and that is a reduction in size. So make sure we always have everything covered. We've drawn the figures, we've dilated, and we've identified the dilation. Let's move on to the next one. I'll box this for my answer there. And it says the vertices of the figure are given. Find the coordinates of the figure after transformation. So they're giving me this, but really all they're asking for are the coordinates. So if you knew the rules, you could end up coming up with the coordinates without having to do all this work. But I'll go ahead and draw in what I've got. -5, 3 is the first point, and B is -2. -2, and then I go up 3 spaces, and then -2, and then just up 1 space, and then D is over 5 and up 1. So this is D, C, this was B, and this was A. So what they're asking me to do is reflect it over the y-axis. So reflecting over the y-axis puts a point here, here, but make sure you write out what these are. So this is B prime, C prime. D is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces from that y-axis, so 5 spaces on the other side. A is the same number, 5 spaces on the other side. So then we have to take these points and we have to go ahead and dilate with respect to the origin with a scale factor of 2. So we have to double each of these values. So if I was to write down what these numbers were, the original points were for my first image, it was it looks like it's 5 spaces over and 3 spaces up for A prime, and that's just changing the x value because I'm reflecting across the y-axis. So B prime is again reflecting across the y-axis, so the x value is what's changing each time, y value stays the same. C prime, I end up reflecting that across the y-axis, so 2, 1, and for D prime, that is going to end up being 5, 1. So now I've got to take these points and I've got to dilate it with a scale factor of 2. So I'm basically multiplying all of those numbers by 2. So here I'll times these by 2, and then I'll multiply these by 2, and I'll multiply these by 2, and multiply these by 2. And that's going to give me my image. So when I go ahead and do that, A double prime is going to end up being 10, 6. B double prime is going to be 4, 6. And C double prime is going to end up being 4, 2. And D double prime will be 10, 2. And those are the answers for this problem. And in this case, they didn't specify to write down or to draw the coordinates. They just said to find the coordinates of the figure of the transformation given. So the graph there is to help us figure out what would those extra points be, but using the rule, and the rule for a reflection over the y-axis was that I end up changing the x value, so negative x comma y. And knowing that gave me these values here, and then from there I just doubled them to come up with these terms. So let's see what it says next. It says to describe the sequence of transformations. Okay, transformation sequence, that means more than one. More than one. So let's do it. Take a look at what we've got. So we're going from this larger one to the smaller one. I know that because I look at it and this one has the prime signs. That tells me that I'm dealing with the image over here. So notice where A needs to get. A needs to go on top. C needs to be underneath it, and B needs to be off to the left-hand side. So I need to rotate this. So that's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to rotate, and I'm going to go 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. Now I'm going to do that because what that'll do is it'll move A up, and it'll move A all the way over here. And then C is going to be right down below it, so 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces below it. And then B is going to end up being just 2 spaces on this other side. So now I've kind of got it lined up, but I do need to get it smaller. So far we've rotated 90 degrees. I got the numbers, the variables kind of in the right spot. A, B, and C. They're in line with where I need it. I just need to make it smaller now. So I'm going to dilate. So let's see what we should dilate by. Since the figure is given to me, let's count the spaces that we have. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. So from A to B is 4, and this is 2. So this is 2, this is 4. And so what that tells me is I need a scale factor of 2. So I'm going to dilate with, or about the origin, I'll say. About the origin with a scale factor of 2. And what that'll do is it'll double all, instead of 2, let's go ahead and go by 1/2 because I need to reduce it, not make it bigger. So let's change that. So, with a scale factor of 1/2, and that will decrease the size of each of these points. So let's see where that puts it. So when I go ahead and do that, I'm taking this value, so let's go ahead and write down what A is here. A is 4, 0. And so what that becomes is 2, 0. So I'm going to go ahead and put the point there. So it becomes 2, 0 when I divide it by 2. So K equals 1/2. So I'm taking half of these numbers. So B, what is B? Well, B is 4, negative 4. So 4, negative 4. So that becomes, when I take a half of each of those values, 2, negative 2. Sure, yeah. So that would become B prime would be 2, negative 2. And so that's C prime. Let's see, B. No, that was B. Alright, now C ends up starting at, let's see, we had C right here. It was 2 to the left, and it is 4 spaces down. And when I take half those numbers, I end up with negative 1, negative 2. And so that one ends up going over 1 to the left and down 2. So now I've got the size, the correct size. There it is. I just need to now move it into the right spot. So this is where B is. And this is A, and this is C. So as I was looking at this, I do have an error where I ended up writing in where B is. So this B right here and this C need to reverse. So if you look at it, C should be the one down below A, and B should be here. So this will be C, and this will be B here. And then all I have to do is slide this into the position it needs to go. So I need to translate, and it looks like I translate 2 to the right, and then 1, 2, 3 up. So 2 right, and 3 up. That'll get me into that spot. So let's take a look at the next one. and it'll be right here, and it says to draw the figure reflected over the y-axis. And so let's start with drawing it. So over 2 up 2, there's m. P is over 3 up 3 spaces. Let me fix where I put m there. And over 3 up 3, and that is P. And then Q is over 4 up 1. Over 4 up 1. So now we're going to go ahead and I'll draw a figure that we see. And I'm going to reflect it over the y-axis. So I just count the spaces. So this is 2 spaces over. This one is 3 spaces from it. So there's where P prime is going to be. This was M prime. And Q is 4 spaces from it. So it's going to go right there. So from there, then they ask, well, then translate 2 to the right, 3 down. So 2 right, 3 down. So 1, 2, 3. That's where M prime will, and M double prime will go. P double prime, 2 right and 3 down, 1, 2, 3, goes there. And Q, 2 to the right and 3 down, 1, 2, 3, will end up going there. So once I draw that, that's the figure that we'll end up seeing. So they ask us to write the rules. The rule for the reflection over the y-axis is that the y values are the part that do not change. The x values do when we go over the y-axis. So it's negative xy, and the translation was 2 to the right. So x plus 2 comma y minus 3, because it was 3 down. So for this next one, describe the sequence of transformations. From the figure on the right is the image. So this one right here is my image. That's the final product I'm trying to get. So I'm first going to start by rotating. I'm going to rotate this one counterclockwise 90 degrees. Let's rotate counterclockwise 90 degrees. That'll be my first step. And it says to kind of describe the sequence. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate clockwise, counterclockwise 90 degrees about the origin. That'll make sure we go about the right item rather than a vertex. And so right here, this is going to go up, and it's going to be right there. This one is 3 spaces left and 4 spaces down, so 4 spaces right and 3 spaces down. And this last one is going to be right alongside the x-axis. So there it is. So now we need to take this and we need to shift it up. So we're going to just translate, and we're going to shift up 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. I need to get this point all the way up here. So translate 4 up. So it asks us to write the rule. And so when we start that, we have x, y. And then since we rotated counterclockwise, our y values are going to switch to the x-axis, and they're going to be negative. Our x values are going to go up to the y-axis. They're going to become positive. And then we're translating just 4 up. So x stayed the same, y we added 4. So this next one, draw the figure, rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise. So we'll start by drawing the figure, negative 4 and positive 1. That was A, and then B, negative 4, positive 3, and then C, negative 1, positive 1. Alright, so we've got the figure. So the next is to rotate counterclockwise. So we need to bring this down into this location here, and we're going to start with over 1, down 1. So again, this side is going to just come straight down. So A is going to be here, so there's C, there's A. And then B is going to end up being right here. And so there's B. And then they say to reflect over the y-axis, then translate as well. So reflect over the y-axis. So the point here, here, and here. And then we're going to translate 2 left. So 2 left, and then 4 up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we end up with a point here. And then following where everything else goes, we'd end up seeing something that looks like this. So there's our final image there. That would be, let's see here, we would have C, this would be triple prime. This one over here would be B triple prime, and this would be C triple prime right there. So once we've done that, we're going to write the rule, and we started off with x, y. Now we rotated it counterclockwise, So the y's and x's are switching, and the y's become negative. And then we go with the reflection over the y-axis, so the x values are what switched. And then we did a translation of, looks like 2 left, so x minus 2, and 4 up, so y plus 4. Let's take a look at the last 3 problems here. Here we have to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract the 5x from all sides. So I've got 2y equals negative 5x plus 6. So then I go ahead and divide by 2, every number by 2, and I'll get the answer. Y equals negative 5 over 2x, and then plus 3. And if you wrote negative 5x over 2, that's the same answer. This next one, they want us to solve for L. So first step is I'm going to go ahead and move that pi r squared over. So I'm going to subtract it from both sides. Now, I can't subtract pi r squared from s, so I have to leave those isolators separate. So s minus pi r squared equals pi r L. So then the pi and the r are being multiplied by the L, so I'm going to divide every term by pi r. And so for this one I have s over pi r minus, now here the pi's cancel out and 1 r is left over, so minus r equals L. And then over here they want us to solve for c first of all, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 32, and I've got f minus 32 equals 9/5 c. So I'm going to multiply by 5/9 to cancel out that fraction, and the 5's will cancel, 9's will cancel, but I got to do the same thing here, so multiply by 5/9. So the first thing is to write down the Celsius formula. Celsius equals 5/9 times by the Fahrenheit, degrees Fahrenheit, minus 32. So that's the first part, and then I need to go ahead and figure out which has the greater temperature. So I'm going to go ahead and change, let's see here, I'm going to change this one right here. I'm going to change the sun to Celsius. So actually I'm going to change the lightning to Fahrenheit. So I'm going to do F equals 9/5 times by 30,000 plus 32. So when I do that, 5 goes into 36 times, but I still have these 3 zeros, so 6,000. 9 times 6 is 54, but I got to carry those 3 zeros and then add the 32. So the degrees Fahrenheit for the lightning is 54,032 degrees. So that's definitely much greater than the sun, which is only 11,000. So lightning is the one that has the greater temperature. So those are the types of problems you're going to see on tonight's homework, or on the next week's test, 2-7.